The federal government is showering Wisconsin schools with more than $2 billion in pandemic relief funds. And the latest round aims at helping students catch up on what they missed.
But Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson found one local school administrator who has turned learning loss into a financial gain for his own household.
I didn't do anything wrong.
If the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line,
why did he feel like he needed to go through a third party?
Jessica Gronbeck doesn't understand the roundabout path her children's school district took to spend pandemic relief funds that ended up benefiting an administrator's family.
Will you talk to me after the meeting?
We'll see you after the meeting.
Mark Smits is superintendent of the Hartford Joint 1 district, which consists of 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school. And like others across Wisconsin,
COVID's been terrible to us. It's been terrible.
The district has seen a sharp drop in student test scores.
We have to stop that.
That's where the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Program, or ESSER, comes in. Since the pandemic began, the federal government has allotted Wisconsin schools more than $2 billion in aid. The latest round, known as ESSER 3, directs more than $1.3 million to Hartford Joint 1.
Drag each sentence to the correct place on the diagram.
At least 20% of that money must be spent helping students like Jessica's son Wesley.
That's correct.
He's the one that is struggling the most.
A 4th grader with learning deficits compounded by the COVID-19 disruptions.
I'm not a reading specialist. I'm not a teacher. So I did the best that I could.
We need to work with parents.
Dr. Smith says the key to turning things around is getting more kids onto ExactPath.
Students receive adaptive learning paths,
an online learning tool students can use at home.
This isn't wildly popular.
Not at all. I don't know anybody that likes it.
And that means engaging with parents.
We have to have an impact player.
So last fall, the district decided to spend more than $130,000 for the second half of this year and all of next on a district community coordinator, someone to nurture the staff and parent-guardian relationship and to promote extended learning opportunities, and do all of that without stepping foot in a classroom.
She's not working with students?
She's not working with students.
Then what is she doing?
The DCC's primary job is to send emails and make phone calls to parents about ExactPath. And in December, the board voted to give that job to a retired district teacher named Cindy Smits, Mark Smits' wife.
Do you think this is a conflict of interest?
No, I don't think it's a conflict of interest.
Dr. Smits says he doesn't supervise or evaluate his wife's performance. But emails obtained by the Fox 6 investigators through a public records request raise questions about the level of transparency that led up to the hire and the role Dr. Smits played in making it happen.
I have no involvement in the hiring process whatsoever.
State law prohibits public officials, like superintendents, from using their position to benefit themselves or their immediate families. In fact, it's a felony for a public official to take official action on a contract in which he or she has a substantial financial interest. But in October, Smits took part in a virtual meeting about the position, was blind copied on emails involving contract negotiations, and kept in the loop on how his wife's contract would be structured. And when the board voted on Cindy Smits' contract in December, it was Mark Smits who signed it.
Why did he sign the contract with CISA 6?
He signs all the contracts.
Board President Greg Erickson doesn't see a problem.
He didn't step away from that one, being that he was signing a contract that employs his own wife?
Well, it's a CISA 6 contract.
And that makes it harder to connect the dots.
I signed a contract with CISA. I did not sign a contract with my wife.
Instead of hiring Cindy Smits directly, the district contracted with a third-party staffing agency known as CISA 6. It's one of 12 cooperative educational service agencies in Wisconsin that allow districts to save money by sharing staff members and equipment with other districts. Only Hartford never intended to share Cindy Smits with anyone. Instead, the district asked CISA 6 to hire her, then contract her full-time services back to Hartford Joint 1. But why?
That's the question. What were they trying to hide?
What's the benefit to going through CISA for something like this instead of just hiring a person directly?
It's limited term.
You can't hire a limited term employee directly?
You could, but it's convenient. It's a limited term.
Teachers flooded the school board with anonymous letters complaining about a lack of transparency, nepotism, and of Dr. Smits putting ESSER funds into his pocket. 5 talked to Fox 6 on the condition we not identify them.
I was livid,
said one.
She doesn't come into the office. She doesn't work with any kids.
A second added,
they used ESSER funds that could have been used to support students with one-on-one interventions.
And a third said,
I can't wrap my head around why the board would let this fly.
Teacher and support staff.
Of course, that assumes board members knew who they were hiring.
There's not a single document that says that prior to it happening.
There's prior conversation.
Dr. Smits now says he talked to board members about bringing his wife back, though he can't say when.
Things have evolved through a number of meetings. So to go back and say exactly when that first conversation took place, I'm not going to, but it's a series of 3 or 4.
Erickson says he recalls one conversation.
He mentioned it to us.
But in response to written questions, board member Erin Wilk tells Fox 6 she was not aware she was casting a vote to hire the superintendent's wife. The proposal sent for board approval in December merely described the desired candidate as a veteran educator.
I think some miscommunication happened, which I take full blame for that miscommunication.
But even that is not what upset teachers most. In April, they got a copy of next year's district calendar, which contained a big surprise, a series of unpaid work evenings for teachers to make phone calls to parents.
That's what we were told Cindy was hired to do.
It did not go over well at all.
That's when things started to get really bad.
It was never my intent to make them work evenings.
Smits now says the calendar was just a working draft with notes teachers weren't supposed to see.
Things have gone bad. You're right, things have gone bad. I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to make good.
I am extremely frustrated.
Gronbeck says the district could have hired more reading specialists instead of hiring the boss's wife.
Do you think it was a waste of money?
Yeah. Complete waste of money.
But more than anything, she just wants someone to call.
Have you gotten a phone call
No,
from Cindy
never.
Smits?
No.
That's correct.
And tell her how the district plans to help her son catch up on all the learning he lost. Since we first started asking questions and requesting records back in April, the Hartford Joint 1 School Board has met in closed session multiple times to discuss the hiring process. And Mark Smits was involved in those discussions. Just last week, Dr. Smits sent a letter to staff members apologizing for gaps in communication and promising a review of existing policies. Also last week, Board President Greg Erickson sent a letter to families saying that Dr. Smits had no involvement in the hiring process and that he did not violate any board policies or state statutes. In Hartford, Brian Polson, Fox 6 Investigators.
Well, you can read the letters sent to staff and parents as well as some of the documents we replied upon for this story. It's on our website. Just go to fox6now.com, click the news tab, and then scroll right to the Fox 6 Investigators.